All right, so I'm going to be reacting to Slavoj Zizek. Uh, he, I'm actually not. I'm familiar with the name. I'm not really sure about. I'm not sure what his political views are. I just know I've heard the name and I don't remember what context I heard it in. But I read the description of the video just to make sure that I knew kind of putting into. Um, and From what I can tell, he's an expert on communism, on Marxism, um, he's an economist or something. And I'm going to watch this. I'm an economics student right now at the University of Tulsa, so I maybe am capable of understanding what he's trying to say. We'll find out.
Crazy times which make Marx actual, but for this very reason we should criticize Marx. What do I mean by this? The problem with Marx is that precisely where he was right to such an extent that he couldn't even imagine how right he is. And that's why he...
Yeah, so he's definitely a fan of Marx.
No, I will give you a simple example. You know the famous lines from Communist Manifesto that with capitalism everything solid melt into thin air, all stable forms are dissolved and so on, all stable hierarchies and so on. But would Marx have even imagined where we are today? For Marx, sexual gender coordinates were still stable. That even that is today experienced as something fluid and so on.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. Some of some of it's a little hard to understand, and I imagine there's some context that I'm missing. But yeah, definitely Marx would not have had any ability to predict um, the fluidity in gender and of sexuality. He maybe I imagine he probably could have predicted sexuality because there's been examples of sexuality being fluid from antiquity and whatnot. But that's possibly it's probably not something that it's not something that would have been a big enough issue at the time of Marx for him to even have needed to understand it.
Or even nature itself. For Marx, nature was still, in the typical modern European way, with all its storms, wild things, and so on, the stable background of our being. We humans are Prometheus.
Right. See, that's a problem with a lot of, especially like capitalism. Capitalism is built upon a system where the underlying conditions are stable and sort of inherent, but we're quickly seeing that systems don't stay stable, and that's true of the world. It's true of social norms. It's true of anything. They're just kind of wibbly wobbly.
We change things and so on. But somehow Marx still counted that nature is this vast reservoir of forces and so on, is somehow strong enough to incorporate or to neutralize the destructive effects of our activity. Now, as we all know, living in the era called Anthropocene and so on, you see, Marx was much more right.
Oh my god, how much I would love to be one of these people in these seats. I mean, both because they're watching a famous professor. It'd be like, it'd be like, and this is like the equivalent I imagine of watching Marx speak live when he was alive. But but also because I fucking hate online classes. I can't do it. It's just I don't have the mental capacity to sit there and watch my professor stare at a screen for an hour and a half. Like I just can't do it. So I just wish that I could be these people.
He should have also added in Communist Manifesto not only social forms, but even what we perceive as natural forms. Life on Earth, our gender, sexual identities are much more fluid, unnatural, and so on and so on. So this, I think, compels us to think more radically, to question many presuppositions. Another nasty thing, I want to provoke you politically. Marx mentions in Communist Manifesto also their all old patriarchal relations are, with developed capitalism, are undermined, rendered fluid, and so on and so on. And that's why I think, with all my respect for transgender movement and so on, that's why I am not surprised that transgender movement is so immensely popular among great corporate figures of the United States. You remember?
Yeah, I mean, what he's saying here is that Marx believed, from what I can tell, I am not an expert in Marx. I haven't read a lot. I haven't read any Marx actually, but the idea is that the patriarchal structures of society serve to further cement capitalism. So that the idea, so you need to destroy the patriarchy in order to continue moving forward. So things like non-binary people and what, like bisexual people, I guess, they have sort of abandoned the construct that you need to be a man or you need to be a woman, and that's it. And so his criticism of transgenderism is not that that it's not real or anything. It's that it doesn't serve his communist purposes. So he's basically making an argument that transgenderism is not it's not revolutionary in that it's not it doesn't break down the patriarchal structures.
When month before Trump was elected, I mean, this is, I think, one of the reasons why he won. The main topic of big left liberal media, like New York Times and so on, what to do with transgender toilets. Is it 2, 3, is it single toilet, and so on and so on. And
yeah, that's true. Right before Trump got elected, that was a big lefty talking point. I mean, obviously, we should be allowed to go into whatever bathroom we feel like, but I think in a perfect, the real solution is to just have one bathroom and men and women both get to go in there. That's what my solution would be. I guess it's called a unisex bathroom. They already exist. But let's see I gotta keep watching.
What made me a little bit suspicious is that all of them, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, name them, all of them fanatically, even the worst capitalist, like who is now, I forgot, after Steve Jobs, the boss of Apple, Tim Cook or who, they all fully supported it. I mean, we should accept it, yes, of course, but that's another topic. Transgender.
Yeah, so his argument would be that they were trying, or I guess his argument is that because, I actually don't know what his argument's going to be. Let's sorry.
Me too. But they are not, I claim, inherently revolutionary. They fit perfectly the dynamic of late capitalist subjectivity with this infinite plasticity and so on and so on. That's why I also have a problem, although personally we are in good relations, with my big philosophical nemesis, Judith Butler. I agree.
I have no idea who he's talking about now. But let's get back to it. So yeah, his point is that if being transgender was inherently revolutionary, large capitalists would never support it, right? Because capitalism thrives on the status quo, So that's why any social movement tries to get stomped down initially by capitalist instincts. Look at Colin Kaepernick. 4 years ago, NFL wouldn't have touched him. Now they're letting them put whatever they want on the back of the jerseys. You can do whatever at the national, But initially, the NFL locked out Colin Kaepernick. He was the greatest quarterback of all time to not receive a backup offer or whatever. That motherfucker Ryan Fitzpatrick has got 7 different teams that have tried him out as starting quarterback for some reason. I mean, it's pretty clear that he would have gotten another opportunity somewhere else, because he took. I mean, whether or not you like it, he took he was Nick Foles before Nick Foles. He took the 49ers to the goddamn Super Bowl. So he's right in that corporate interests won't put down something unless it's inherently revolutionary. Black Lives Matter is inherently revolutionary. That's why it was initially stomped down so forcefully.
I agree with her. She gives the correct description of what is happening today. We no longer have, or less and less, this binary logic, predetermined sexual roles. We rediscover, recreate, repeat, reconstruct, invent our identities. My only problem is, what's so revolutionary about it? My reproach to her is that in some sense, she is simply describing modern late capitalist, typical modern late capitalist subjectivity. We live in a unique era.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, there's nothing, I've got a pride flag up on my wall that I bought on Amazon, right? I've got the Cuban flag up in the background that I bought on Amazon. These things, certain actions can represent revolutionary thought, but they're not revolutionary actions, right? So, I mean, you can rail against your boss all you want, but if you're not doing anything to like try to form a union, or you're not supporting socialism, then you're a class traitor. So his argument would be that you're not, you can be gay and still be a class traitor. You can be transgender and still be a class traitor. So yeah, let's keep going.
Where today, if we can construct this in a naive way, I simplify it. Today, ideology, and I don't mean a personalized ideology, but in the most elementary sense, when you're growing up and all the time later, what society is telling you to be, in a very naive way. What does it expect from you? My God, it's no longer obey your father, sacrifice yourself. It's what I ironically like to call spiritualized hedonism or enlightened Western Buddhism. Basically, the message is there are no higher causes worth sacrificing for. Enjoy life, but not in a stupid sense. Look into yourself, recreate yourself, explore your potentials, and so on and so on. Sometimes this also has very comic effects. For example, recently, not so recently, years ago,
I know I'm not stopping it very often. I'm just kind of interested in what he's got to say.
I was in Argentina, and I was told there a wonderful story from a historian of psychoanalysis, how things changed. Because as Foucault, I don't agree with him. I'm not a Foucauldian, but he's not an idiot. One should read him. So Michel Foucault noticed in a very nice way somewhere how the key decision, power decision of a psychoanalyst is, what is a symptom that has to be analyzed as a clinical case, and what is just a normal state that doesn't deserve to be analyzed? Somebody comes to you, if you are an analyst, I am not, and you can guess why. Once a student, this is not a joke, unfortunately, once a student in New York told me, I would like to go to you in psychoanalysis. My idea was, you are really mad. Okay, but seriously, they told me that a very simple, stupid example. Half a century ago and more, a very traditional, stupid point, simplistic, with regard to promiscuity. If you were a man or a wife, promiscuous, sleeping around with others, it was considered pathological, something to be interpreted. The idea was, what are you running from?
I respect. I mean, I need to stop the video every once in a while so that it feels like I'm contributing something to this. But I just love this dude. I'm watching his lectures. Fuck, I'll read his books even.
Why this fear from stable relations, whatever? Did you have Oedipal problems, blah, blah. Today, they told me it's the opposite. I'm not joking. If you are faithful to your wife or husband, you'll get, oh my God, you have a traumatic fixation. This has to be things. So, what's the first lesson here? That it's not just a stupid game of words. Hysteria is historical. Forms of hysteria are always historically specified. In what sense? In the sense that hysteria is, my old Lacanian and at the same time Marxian thesis, hysteria is the elementary form of critique of ideology. Critique at ideology at its most elementary subjective level. Because as you already, I think, indicated, incidentally, I will not go into it, but that's what nonetheless makes me some kind, at least I hope, some kind of a feminist, because hysteria is feminine. If you want this opposition in types of pathology, obsessional neurosis is more masculine. There are even among some clinicians that I know great debates of can there be even a feminine obsessional neurotic? But what I want to say is, what is hysteria at its most elementary? It's an undermining of interpellation.
I'm really worried that I'm missing some whack shit because he's talking. I mean, uh, I he's definitely a leftist, but I can't figure out, or I mean, it definitely sounds like he's a leftist. I just can't figure out uh, what the point he's trying to make with this one is. I mean, maybe I'm missing it, the hysteria, but I think his argument would be that hysteria and so like I mean I guess transgenderism is hysteria in this case, but the idea is that hysteria doesn't undermine capitalism. So like when everyone was trying to get the gays, that didn't undermine capitalism. When everyone was trying to get the black people, that didn't undermine capitalism. When women were being attacked, that didn't undermine capitalism. Um, because hysteria and defending yourself against the system in an effort to be incorporated into the system is a lot different than like a communist fighting against the system in order to destroy that system. Um, and I think that that's what he's trying to get at. I just can't figure it out, and I feel like I've totally lost the point. So I'm not going to continue watching uh, because I don't know what's going on anymore. But I feel like maybe I get it. But I'm not going to keep going just because I would need to rewatch this last 2 or 3 minutes, and I just don't want to have to put you guys through that.